So we move to part one, the effect. And within part one, the effect, we have three main topics that we're going to tackle, which are the reality of growth, the amplification principle, and the amplification impact on the three levels. And kicking it off with the reality of growth. Now, one of the things that happens quite often when companies start to grow, that they face challenges such as, not limited to, but such as the rapid increase in the hiring volume as one of the issues or the challenges that many of these companies would face. And we kind of more or less have either been there or seen many organizations get this big boost and boom in terms of the amount of hiring that they require all of a sudden. And that's a challenge because usually, which brings me to the next issue, which is coordination is usually harder when we see an organization starts to grow or unlock a new level of operations. And that is also an issue. And during sometimes an issue where there's, hiring is a bit crazy and coordination is much harder, we do see also emergence of new leadership layers, whether it's official or unofficial. A lot of it is unofficial. I see that there's a lot of positive within because it shows that people could be proactive, step up to the challenges, but also it could complicate things. It could add more layers of complexity that we might have not prepared for or might have not needed. So that's another challenge. And finally, the multiplying amount of decisions that needs to be taken, needs to be done with that growth, with that hiring, with that coordination. It's just a lot going on. So these challenges could lead to different undesirable outcomes, starting with the hiring volume when it gets increased. Inconsistent hiring quality could be an outcome or a result of that specific cause. The harder coordination could lead into slower execution. The new layers of leadership really could get managers to be overloaded with more things that they have to do and more responsibilities and more lines and more official and unofficial things that they have to go through. And then finally, also any increase in terms of amount of decisions could lead into having more and more decision bottlenecks and more, especially with speed and sometimes with accuracy when it comes to, just like let's just yes this, yes that, because of the decision fatigue. So these are specific things that we might not want to lead into, but these are the things that are outcomes of the challenges that any organization that starts to grow could face. Now, when it comes to the amplification principle, it's really simple. It's because growth does not create problems at all. Growth amplifies them. So whenever we have any kind of weakness within the organization or the individual or whatever, or the team, any kind of growth is just going to expose or show more of that problem that has not been solved. And if we look at the specific level that this, whatever, problem or an issue or a gap is there, individual, team, organization, when scaling up with the individual, when it comes to the responsibilities that they'd have, or that career growth, when it comes to the team, it's the size or the complexity of it, the organization in terms of the growth overall. These could be the things that could get amplified. With the individuals, it's mainly habits, individual leadership patterns. The teams could also have that complexity being amplified when it comes to the coordination and how the team works or gets things done. And then finally, the big thing, the structural weaknesses of the company would be showcased. Not only by structural, I don't mean organization structure only, but I mean any kind of thing that requires a structure, which could be a system, could be the organization's main touch points. It could be even things related to the products that are being developed or their services. All of these should be supported by strong structures. And if there are any weaknesses within how we develop new products or how we respond to these clients of ours, or how customers get the best experience, if the structure is not as strong as what is needed, then the weaknesses are going to be amplified when we're going to grow. That brings me to how that impact, let's go deeper with how the impact could be of amplification on these levels, starting with the individual within the organization. Growth amplifies, as we said, behavior patterns, especially when scaling up. And at the early stage, a disorganized person could lead into having chaotic leadership at a larger scale. Yeah, because when they start to be, taking, spending more time in the organization, you automatically are going to be in a not necessarily an official role, but even an unofficial role. Like, you start being part of this company for a while, then you sense that this is something that you belong as a part of. Then you take certain decisions that could be related to, or could be linked to, what we would say these are leadership abilities and capabilities. And a disorganized person could lead into adding more chaos to this mix. The poor communicator could lead into having organizational confusion when it comes to at a larger scale. Uh, Indecisive person means slower company decisions at a larger scale. Micromanager becomes a person who could be having teams that are paralyzed because they're they micromanage when at an early stage, and you notice that when the organization starts to grow at any certain point that becoming larger or scaling up, they are going to paralyze the teams that they work with. So it's very important to try, and as growth requires here, continuous leadership and capability development as early as we can, with with the idea, and I believe this, like, really, no one is perfect, and some people, and myself included, I'd be very excellent at a certain thing, not so good in other things, and it's about me, at the end of the day, being more, as much as I can, aware of what I could bring and what I could do, what things could put me down, what things could push me forward, and to have that organizational team to know that, to work together to enhance the overall capability is much needed to avoid these pitfalls for sure. So we continue with the next level that is amplified when growth happens, which is the team. So for the team amplification, growth amplifies mainly coordination and alignment challenges. So for example, at an early stage where you have a small team, with a larger scale really leads into having more complexity when it comes to coordination. A lot of the informal roles could lead into having a lot of confusion later on, because there's a lot more roles and a lot more people, and the informal ones, when not formalized, really can create an atmosphere of confusion. Another thing that can bring confusion is founder decisions at the beginning, which they become the operating system that leads to inefficiency with time, because at a larger scale you need beyond one person to decide on things, and also there could be inconsistency. Therefore, there has to be a design system where decisions are being designed depending on the state and the let's say the stage where the organization is at. And then finally, direct communication at an early stage, given the size, leads to a lot of information silos with time. Now, all of these really could require, if you have a clearer team ownership and an operating discipline that really helps the team or any kind of group of people to coordinate better and to align better, that would be the key thing. And the third level, which is the organizational level, so growth amplifies mainly structural and systemic weaknesses that the organization has. For some examples that we could have, at an early stage, informal decisions leads to decision chaos at a larger scale, and the hiring that happens, founder as the operating system, or as the main selection, let's say, assessment uh, decider or definer also, the higher quality will drop or will just not be as aligned to what the needs are, especially at a larger scale. And then ad hoc processes that have happened at an early stage become hazards, not even bottlenecks, but hazards when it comes to operational uh, uh, consistency that are needed, and operational steps that require uh, any kind of like delivery on anything. It just really is something that we might a lot of times underestimate at a smaller scale, but at a larger scale, it's not that something that we want to play with. And finally, another example, there's the heroic execution that happens at an early stage. That is nice to have at the beginning, but with time, with a larger scale, burnout. That's definitely something that would happen because once you try to apply the same level of energy that you have for a larger scale organization, you're just gonna be depleted, especially if you're an individual or a couple of individuals. Uh, 5 of you guys who started the company. So it really, really, really is important to notice these things, and if we want to really overcome them, growth here requires intentional organization design and execution systems.